Great novels get readers hooked, addicted even. What did Mark Twain always say? First one's free, second one is $8.99 on Amazon. Or it's free if you have Kindle Unlimited or whatever. If you want readers gobbling up your prose with reckless abandon, if you want them on the edge of their seats, furtively turning every page in desperation to know what happens next, then look no further than this video. Today, we're going to talk about some of the things that will get readers addicted to your novel. Then once they want to stop reading your novel, they can start buying the patches and the gum and just do that for the rest of their life. These are some of the things I've noticed are common to a lot of the novels that I've had trouble putting down, and hopefully if you add a few of them to your novel, readers will likewise have trouble putting it down. All right, the first thing to get readers addicted to your novel is to manage your depth and complexity equation. Oh great, math. Depth and complexity are two important concepts when it comes to storytelling. Complexity is the amount of work the reader needs to do in order to understand the story. The number of characters they need to keep track of, the amount of magical or scientific mumbo jumbo they need to discern, even down to how complex the prose is to parse. If you use a lot of $3 words or a lot of metaphorical language or a lot of long complex sentences, then your writing tends to be more complex. Depth, on the other hand, is the benefit that the reader gets from reading your story. It is the sense of immersion, the sense that they are seeing a real, living, breathing world populated with living, breathing characters coming to life on the page right before their eyes. If complexity is the mountain the reader must climb in order to experience your story, depth is the view that they get from the top. More depth with less complexity is generally a really good thing. You need some complexity, but too much complexity or complexity that doesn't deliver any depth will turn readers off. How much readers enjoy a story is largely a function of depth divided by complexity. That's the equation here. You want to maximize depth and generally minimize complexity. Some things that you can do to minimize complexity include making your prose easy to consume. Work on your sentence flow. Be as clear as possible in your descriptions. Make dialogue attribution clear. You can write extremely beautiful, even poetic and metaphorical prose that is still easy to parse and easy to consume. Lowering the complexity of prose does not mean making it dull or flat or uninteresting. It means making it easy to consume. Quality over quantity is almost always better when it comes to reducing complexity and increasing depth. This applies when it comes to things like the number of characters, the number of locations in your novel, magical powers, or sci-fi technology. Remember that everything you introduce is more complexity that the reader must overcome. So going deeper, focusing on going deeper rather than going wider. I've got other content that talks about depth versus complexity, so you can check that out if you want more help here. But getting this equation right, lowering your complexity as much as possible and increasing the amount of depth your novel has as much as possible goes a long way to getting readers hooked. Next thing for writing addictive novels, give the reader something to chase, and ideally more than once. This is going to sound kind of counterintuitive, and hopefully I can get this across. People get addicted to a book not because of something new that they are seeking, but in order to re-experience something that the novel has already given them. This is really what you're chasing. This is the basis for behavioral reinforcement, not just in reading, but in most things. The reason you crave pizza is because one time in the past you ate pizza and it was really good. And now you want more pizza so that you can relive that experience when you first had pizza. It would be kind of weird to crave pizza if you've never had pizza. On the novel side of things, I think this is more easily illustrated with something like a series. If you really want to read book 2 in a series, it's because you really enjoyed book 1. You want to relive the experience that book 1 provided in a new novel. You'll see the same thing with authors too. The reason that people read another Stephen King book is because they liked the last Stephen King book that they read and they want to relive that experience. They want to have that experience again. This can happen within a single book as well. If the opening part of the novel has some really cool characters doing some really cool things and the reader has a really good experience there, they're going to continue reading in the hopes that the novel is going to deliver that same experience again. The reason to keep reading is because of what the book has already done. It has already made the reader feel good, and they want more of that. My biggest piece of advice, if you want to do this in your novel, is to get to the good stuff as soon as you can. Give the reader something interesting, give them a good experience as early as possible, along with the promise that more of that sort of thing is coming. A lot of writers, I think, have this idea that they need to build slowly, that they don't want to use up all their story ammunition too early, that they need to leave all of the excitement to the end of their story. There's certainly a place for building things up, and you definitely don't want your big climax and ending of your story to happen in chapter 1, but we also don't want 15 chapters of the protagonist just suffering through their mundane life before they discover they have magical powers or a butler gets murdered or something. We want good stuff to happen somewhat early in the story. And people talk about this. This is a very common thing. This is the hook. This is the inciting incident. People talk about this all the time, that early in your novel, you need something to get the reader hooked. But I think it's the understanding that the experiences early in your novel and the reader's desire for more of that experience is what really will get them hooked and addicted to the rest of the story. This idea relates to, but is sort of different from the last point that I want to talk about today, which is to make the reader hunt or search or deal with some uncertainty in order to find this gratification. Last point was about making them crave this gratification. This point is about making them work for it or be uncertain about when it's going to come. One of the reasons that stuff like gambling or even social media algorithms or even stuff like YouTube or TikTok or whatever, one of the reasons that these things are so engaging is that they have an unpredictable reward structure. Sometimes you get something, sometimes you don't, and you can never predict when you're actually going to get something. One of the reasons that people like scrolling social media is that sometimes the post or whatever you see is something that you enjoy and like, and sometimes it's something that you're not interested in, and you have no idea if the next post you scroll to is going to be a winner or not a winner. For a bunch of neuroscience reasons that I'm not even remotely qualified to discuss, people seem to really like this. They really like an unpredictable reward structure. They really like feeling like they have to search to get a reward. That feeling of seeking a reward and not necessarily being certain when or how much of that reward you're going to get. Anticipation is really at the root of a lot of these behaviors, and you need to do that in your story as well. I could tell you how to do that, but then I would be destroying the uncertainty and you wouldn't have this seeking behavior. One way that you can do this is with tension. I've talked before about how managing the tension in your story, which is sort of the edge of your seat emotional intensity at any given moment. Managing tension in a story is not just about ramping up that tension. It's not just about always increasing it. You don't necessarily want the story to constantly ramp up in tension. You want there to be an ebbing and flowing. You want some parts to be very tense and some parts to be a little bit more relaxed. Unless you're writing something like a thriller. Thrillers like to do the constant tension thing, but thrillers are mainly just about tension. That's what that genre is about. So that's maybe one exception. The point of this, the point of having tension sort of go up and down, the point of having some parts of the story be exciting and other parts be a bit more of a lull, is to foster this sort of uncertain reward behavior. Sometimes the reader gets an exciting scene and things advance and things move quickly, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have to keep reading. Doing this correctly and not just making a certain part of the novel boring to the point where readers put it down is its own topic of discussion, but this is an example of how not delivering what the reader wants can actually make the reader more engaged because of the appeal of an uncertain reward structure. Speaking of appealing things, I'm going to appeal myself out of this chair because this video is almost done. So there you have it. If there's anything that you know of that will get readers hooked onto a novel, please let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.